and I don't think it was recording on my phone. So there we go. All right, I'm gonna put somebody on the spot. Sharon, you look like you want to.
Yes.
Sharon, do you mind starting off for us? Just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. The number one thing I want to tell you is I have to hook speakers so I can hear my computer. And today it says my video is not working. So you guys may have got a break there. I work at Youth and Family Services. I've been home for several months, and I'm enjoying staying home. Most people are hating it, but I've got me a routine, and I still get to see the people that are under supervision and my clients. So I'm quite happy, except that my computer doesn't work well.
Well, welcome, Sharon. I wish I could see you, but I'll take with what I can get. So, are you able to see me with your video?
Yes, and I can see everyone else's face, but today there's just a red line across the start video, and I've done everything that I've never had that happen before, but I can't seem to, I've pushed every button that's on there, and it just doesn't video today, so I'll keep playing with it.
Okay, no worries. Welcome. I appreciate what you talked about there with COVID and trying to adjust. If you don't mind, you might speak a little bit about how that's affected you, in your practice and what you're doing as folks kind of walk through this. In fact, before I hear the next person, I appreciate welcome, Sharon. Let me get my headphones so I cut some of the background noise from around here, because you guys can probably hear cars going by. Hold on one moment. Okay. All right. So thank you, Sharon. Hopefully this will cut some of that noise out. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
All right. That's okay. That's better for me. Hopefully that's better for you too. Okay. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Thanks, Brittany.
I forgot the questions.
Oh, just tell me a little bit about yourself,
Okay.
and maybe how COVID has affected you.
My name is Brittany Thompson. I'm an LPC. I just started private practice within the last week, so that's new for me. But in the last couple months with COVID, I continued to see clients at the office unless they couldn't come, and I did Zoom and the FaceTime type stuff. So a little bit of both. I feel like we were more busy. I don't feel like it really slowed down much. That's really it.
Cool. Well, welcome, Brittany. It's good to see you. Congrats on the big step out there. So we all wish you well.
Thank you.
I'll go next.
Thanks, Renda.
I'm Miranda Gulick. I work at Making a Difference. I'm an LPC. One thing I've noticed with the COVID and doing Zoom with clients is 5-year-olds, it doesn't work very well. It's really hard to keep their attention and keep them focused. I know with them opening things back up, I've had a lot of clients who want to continue Zoom just, I think, because it's convenient and they don't have to get out. And I have some families where I see all 3 kids, so it's just easier for, take the phone to your sister, take the phone to your brother, and, but the little ones, seeing them back at the office because Zoom is just too hard. And And Kelly wanted me to let you know, Taylor, that she has no power at her house and doesn't have enough battery charge on her phone to come in on her phone. So
I'm recording for a couple of people, and then they'll have to answer a very thorough questionnaire. So
Okay.
if she wants to try to do that, she can attempt to do that. But and obviously that's not as engaging as this, where you're back and forth and you aren't involved in the conversation. But that's possible.
Right, right.
Some
I,
people
I
have
know,
figured
I
it
know
out.
too, like being at home, having my own kids here, I tend to have myself locked in my bedroom while I'm doing sessions. Because that's the only place I have with a lock on the door.
Right. My kids are getting screen time that I'd hate to give to them right now, but that's what's
Mine too.
happening right now.
Thank
So,
you.
but yeah, I appreciate that you let me know that with the kids. It definitely is. It works with adults, and you kind of spoke to the convenience where somebody who may not drive to the office may do this. And I was thinking about that, even like folks that may have too much stigma attached to mental health to actually go to an office may do this instead. So I really was reticent and hesitant. I mean, I was like, I've never done video counseling. I've done some video supervision one time, and that, and I knew the person before I did the video supervision. So it was less of a, trying to get rapport this way. It has its benefits, but it has some definite drawbacks as well. I didn't think about the benefits at first. So there have been a few, but welcome.
Thanks.
Can you hear me, Taylor?
I can. Thanks, Keith.
I'm Keith Carver, work at Alpha Assessment and Counseling, LPC. I've been quarantined pretty much until the last week, just doing everything by video, but not by Zoom. So this Zoom I haven't figured out yet. And I agree, it's hard with kids, especially ADHD kids that want to hop around and move around and stuff. It's hard to keep them on camera and keep them occupied and busy. That's about it.
Yeah, well, welcome, Keith. I appreciate you standing in for me while I was getting things together here. You didn't tell a joke, but you still carried the dead air.
Yeah, and Mark Taylor is listening or is watching, but
okay.
He I don't know. Anyway, he's there. He said something about needed to be signed in or something, or accepted or something like that.
Oh yeah. Okay. Shoot. Hopefully I'm not locking people out. So if he wants to try again, I definitely will. I definitely will let him in.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, welcome, Keith. Good to see you.
This is Shelley Hawking. I am at LPC Youth and Family Services, and I have been working from home ever since this whole thing started. Some of my clients are very compliant and don't have any problems with their kids doing Zoom, but then there's the parents that they feel like their kids would not benefit from Zoom sessions. The younger ones mainly, and then there's a few older ones. There's some that have not answered my text messages, phone calls, paperwork that I sent in the mail. So it's been a struggle. Just keep pushing forward every day.
Yeah, I with kids, it's actually virtually impossible to keep that same rapport level. I mean, there's so much interaction that's required. I mean, it's even I've had people in practicum this semester, students who I never even thought about trying to prepare for video counseling before what happened. But they talked about in a normal session, you're giving 100%. You are 100% in tune, focused. Okay, we're doing some interactive therapy. We're doing a little bit of play. I mean, you're right there. And so it takes 100%. So at the end of the day, you're wiped out. But with this, you're trying to stay attuned to everybody's nonverbals. You can't see their whole body. You know, your eyes are visually strained because there's this two-dimensional image, and it's just so it's like you give, she said it's like you give 125%. And I agree. I mean, if any, has anybody done like more than 4 or 5 hours of Zooming like in a day? What do you feel like at the end of that day?
Exhausted.
Yes, just oh my gosh, where's my brain? I don't want to even see anybody. I don't want to see the screen. So yeah, it can be it can be very taxing. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I guess I'll go, Taylor.
Okay.
Joanna Moats, Youth and Family Services, Case Management 2 certifications, what I'm getting. I've been back at work almost 3 weeks now. And, oh, sorry, I got a phone call about that.
There's a Zoom bingo.
There we go. Anyway, I've been back about 3 weeks now. I've really missed all the kids, being around them here in the shelter. It's great to be back with everybody again. Had lots of Zoom meetings. I will share something that I heard from a counselor up front the other day about her therapy sessions on Zoom, which I thought was very interesting. She said that she had a client that must have smoked like 10 or 15 cigarettes during their hour session on Zoom. And she started thinking about how hard that must be when he actually comes to the office to see her, to sit in an office for that length of time without being able to smoke. So it gave her a whole different perspective on him, just watching him in a home situation and what he really is like. I thought that was interesting.
I never thought about that, but that's, yeah, if somebody has a habit of just, chain smoking, that'd be incredibly difficult to focus during sessions.
Yeah.
Just like, what am I doing with my hands? I really am having like a craving right now. So
They were much more comfortable in the home. I'm going to hand you over to John since he's right here too now.
okay. Hi,
Hey,
John.
Sal, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Coach Your Kid has transitioned over to Youth and Family Services, and with this flu, it has decimated the program. We have 80 kids that have not been able to be mentored because we don't have permissions to do mentoring online yet. It's something we're working on. And because of the parks and everything being closed down, we could not even put together our summer camps. Now we were set to do basically 10 days of camps, which could have morphed into 15 days, but because of our 6 feet apart and then new permissions having to be formed, we are unfortunately in a position to just hope that by the 2021 school year, the kids will really be back in school. I ran into one.
I'm sorry, you cut out there, John. Can anybody hear John? No. Let me send a message.
I can hear
Let's see here. Joanna, John cut out a little bit there.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. But it just was, what I got was there were camps that were ready to go, and because of the 6 foot social distancing, couldn't really pull those off. And so where did you go after that?
Well, I ran into one of the kids in the program yesterday, and he was saying that he really, really missed spending time with his mentor. And so hopefully come August, we'll be able to get back on track.
Okay. Yeah, I hope they can get some sort of precautionary, I don't know whether we need more testing or just, it's just so unpredictable. It seems like if we get through the summer without, having a lot of infections, I do worry about fall and having people get back together in close quarters. But yeah, and it is a, I don't even know how to say, there's just a qualitative difference over a video, and it's not the same as in person. I mean, if you're not breathing the same air as your client, there's a disconnect there. So, and especially if you're a mentor, I mean, that's all that connection. It's
Right.
harder. It's harder to have an emotional moment for those of you that are used to dealing with like deep emotions and, you know, not just superficial, yeah, small talk. It's hard to get there unless you just really have a bond with somebody like this.
Right.
It's hard to get there like this. So,
Right. And
I
there's
appreciate-
there's only been a few people that have mentored the same student since the beginning of the program. So those people, they have that kind of bond. But for people who've been mentoring their kid, like there was a couple of people who came in who were only mentoring a couple of weeks before, you know, the virus, you know, came to town. It's just had a big disconnect with the kids in the program.
yeah, there's no real substitute for face-to-face with kids. I know nationally, this is the counseling, American Counseling Association took some pretty aggressive steps early to just kind of make sure that, you know, people could have some continuity with the video technology. I'm sorry that you guys haven't been able to get that okay. You know, I know that would help a little bit with maintaining relationships. But that's been important. I think that's been important for a lot of us here to just, even if we make a slight contact, when is this going to be over? Hopefully soon. I don't know. It's just so hard to tell.
Yep.
Thanks, John.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'll go ahead and go. Sean Byrne, private practice at the Burns Center. I've been back at the office now, but still seeing clients primarily via telehealth. It's impossible to do EMDR over telehealth and trauma work. Yeah, you really can't do that whole thing. I don't mind telehealth as much as I do not like working from home. Too many distractions. And I apologize in advance, but the storm last night knocked out the pump to the pool. The plumber, I think, has just left. My wife is seeing clients from home every other week. So between the dog, the distractions, the lonely neighbor who, when he sees our car, comes knocking on the door, you know, hey, you guys at home? You know, it's a mess. So I love being back at my office, but obviously I'm not today. And we'll just make it through it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Sean. Glad you could make it. Now sorry, I just had a Harley go by. If you're hearing that, sorry. Go ahead. Lavina?
I guess I'll,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Taylor,
ahead.
can you hear me?
I can hear. Who's talking now?
Oh, where are you going, Lavina?
I'm sorry.
I'll talk. This is Leanne Hawkins.
Oh, hi, Leanne. Sorry. Yeah, there you are.
I think, I don't know, I think that I interrupted somebody.
Oh, you're okay. You're good. You've got the floor. I'll come back to Lavina.
Okay, so I am LPC and I do school counseling at Pioneer Pleasantville. And we've done a lot of special education meetings over telephone and Zoom. And we have done school through packets and computer tech and just muddling through it like everyone else.
Yeah, that's been a challenge for education. I mean, especially like we've noted here, the younger the child, the harder it is to kind of pick up and re-engage. And then, you know, as Sean kind of alluded to, if you have people at home and you know, things going on, it's hard to be a stay-at-home parent and a stay-at-home professional. That's just those roles, and a stay-at-home teacher. Now you've got all those things kind of overlapping, and it's just been it's been overwhelming for many. It's just a burden of stress. But it sounds like you're able to have a little bit of continuity. You didn't really get to see the kids, but it sounds like you're able to at least, you know, get through with the meetings and get through with the requirements that were necessary.
Yeah, I mean, the teachers have done a lot of cool stuff on um, Facebook and just through technology.
Yeah, it's good because kids are the younger generation are used to screens more so than us, as evidenced by our meeting so far here today. Many of us, but uh, I do appreciate what teachers have done. They've done the same thing with my two kids, trying to reach out and keep them busy and interactive things that they can go on and play games and stuff. So I had one therapist who was just acting like playing catch with a child over just to kind of get that interaction. She had puppets and she was having the child tell the puppets like what to do. Like it was pretty. It was a student, so it was pretty creative for her. I was impressed by that. But yeah, I appreciate that. Leanne, it's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, Lavina, it's your turn.
All right. Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for accommodating us that are having video challenges today. I appreciate it. I haven't been able to slow down through this whole epidemic, other than youth and family services school-based. But I do have one client that I do home-based, and we sit underneath the gazebo. And for private practice, which I've been doing the past, I think, 4 or 5 years, it's the younger generation families that I work with, and it's giving them an opportunity to take their children out of the house and to go somewhere. So since the CDC came out with the recommendations, I've been practicing that with the children for a while. So whenever it became effective here in Enid as far as the closing and things like that, the kids were pretty much good to go. It has been able to slow down their bodies where they've been able to use their brain and remember, I need to stay 6 feet apart. Sometimes I do like beep, 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 like a truck backing up, you need to back up.
That's
and
cute.
We practice 6 feet really well. And it's been interesting as far as trying to think of what interactive games you can play and remain 6 feet apart. So just like the governor mentioned, anything's considered, be creative. So that's what I've had to do. So out of my caseload, I may have had maybe 2 families for different reasons, but they're definitely staying in and not wanting to participate. But we have the fans blowing, the doors are open for circulation through the building, just keep the air moving. We made it through the bees trying to fly in, and different seasonal things. But it's been very interesting process. And I think it's great that we're all sharing our ideas. It's been very helpful today to hear input from others and the challenges they faced.
Yeah, at first I felt like I was really on an island, like just didn't really know. And the more that I've kind of reached out in these kind of forums, it's like, oh wow, okay, so somebody did this and somebody did that. It's very needing to be creative. One of the things that we did that I really agreed with strongly was lessen the HIPAA restrictions on video platforms. Being able to use Facebook Messenger, basically something like this. It's not necessarily double secure that meets HIPAA requirements. Being able to see clients on this, so hopefully that will continue. A little loosening of those restrictions. It is hard because if you've got rapport with a teen and now they're in a small living environment and their parent can hear them, or they're in a situation where they can't be fully present with you. It's just there's some give and take, definitely. Thanks, Lavina. It's good to hear from you.
Thanks.
Well, I guess I'll go.
Thanks, Melissa.
My name is Melissa Fowler, and I'm in private practice. I'm LPC, LADC, and I've been doing telehealth the whole time, working from home. My software has a built-in, so it's been really convenient. It's been going really well. I haven't really had any major issues. Most of my clients, though, are teenagers or adults, so they're pretty used to this. I think my teenagers like just having someone to talk to. I think they're pretty bored. Yeah, I think the only fun story I have is I was doing a session and all of a sudden a mouse started running across my floor. And so I was trying to do my best to just like stay focused and not stare at the mouse and freak out. So I made it. I talked to the client the next week and told her what happened. And she was like, I thought maybe I was just overwhelming you. And I was like, no, you weren't overwhelming me. The mouse was.
That's pretty funny. So you weren't able to keep your poker face even on the video platform. I would have had trouble too. I'd have been like, oh,
Yeah.
hey.
It kept running at me. And so I was like, but other than that, it's been really good. I feel like I do a lot of advertising on Psychology Today, and they have a special banner just for telehealth. So I think I've gotten quite a few new clients just because of that advertising.
Nice. So even like in a national, like multi-jurisdiction platform where you're able to kind of cross state boundaries and help people that way.
I mean,
Yeah.
most of my clients are from Enid, but
Yeah.
knowing that they can have therapy now, because I think a lot of people who are looking for it are assuming everything's closed.
Nice. Yeah. I go back to, there's such a stigma around here with mental health still. I think there have been improvements, but folks that may not go to a session may be willing to do a video session, and start a relationship that way. So that's good. Thanks for sharing. Jay, you want to step out on a limb? Oh, he cut his video. So
Yeah.
that's a no.
Wait. Okay, I'm back. I hit the wrong button.
Okay. Well, I really scared him off there. My bad.
Jay Riddlesberger, case manager 2 with the state. I work with Youth and Family Services. My primary role over the last year has been with Botman prevention in about half of the elementary schools. Of course, that's been that was discontinued in March because of the school closings. So I did still have a few clients through OJA that I've been seeing. And I really have been surprised how well Zoom has worked. That's how I'm seeing all my clients. In some respects, I feel like I've had some very good sessions with quality engagement. A lot of the CARS clients, of course, it's pretty superficial at times because someone's twisting their arm to be there.
Right.
But I have had, some cases where it feels like there's not very much drop off in the engagement and just the quality of the sessions. I guess, I'm not sure how much longer I'll be doing this, but I will say with COVID, when going into ethics, I say that maybe there's a few interesting things that come up in sessions that I've experienced as far as ethics go. And one of those things is whenever you have, and I see mostly young people. I think my youngest client right now is 15, and they go up to 21. Whenever you know that they are not adhering to, recommendations, maybe sometimes acting recklessly, or even talking about misinformation or expressing misinformation. And with this being a public health crisis, what my role is in being able to maybe balance that a little bit, or how to approach that dilemma in a way that doesn't hurt rapport, because
Okay, I see what you're saying. So maybe trying to correct some irrational thoughts about and beliefs that kind of circulate around this situation, versus I also want to respect their culture and their worldview.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do you navigate that?
Well,
for the rest of us.
What I will say is, I'll get very Jungian here.
Okay.
I try to hold the tension, and then if in doing that, if I can do that, I can maybe present some information in kind of finesse some information, or maybe some data or facts that contradict, but don't, but without doing it confrontationally.
Okay.
And the only way I feel like I can do that is by kind of holding that inner tension and knowing, what the dilemma is, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. So, not letting them off the hook cognitively,
Right.
maybe keeping that distance as maybe as they leave the session.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's maybe even you're stepping into our world as cognitive behavioral therapists. Your Jungian mindset. You're broadening that horizon. I'm just playing with. No, that's cool. That falls under Jung as well. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess I will go next.
Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah, I'm Alicia Jamison. I'm an LADC. I work with youth and family in the drug court programs for Garfield County. I think my biggest struggle has just, without the actual physical accountability for my clients, I've seen a lot of them fall off and relapse, and that's been really tough on the clients as well as me. Would you stop?
Yeah, I didn't even consider drug court, and because they're not having weekly court sessions, I imagine either.
No.
Oh no! Yeah, that's the whole program.
Staffings. Yeah.
Oh, that stinks. Okay. Well, shoot. What have you had any success or out of this, or just mainly it's been people not doing well?
I mean, even though there have been quite a few that have relapsed, I'm seeing success come from it, because a lot of the relapse necessarily ready to graduate yet, so we can kind of reevaluate and see where they're at and give them the support that they're needing to do this on their own.
Okay, so yeah, maybe framing it into a positive that, yeah, this gives you a little extra time to work on skills. It's interesting you mentioned that the connection that was made while you were talking was, alcohol consumption has increased 50% in the United States. That I'm assuming that's by volume, by what people are buying. So you assume that they're also consuming that as well. I had somebody say that they're having trouble distinguishing days of the week. It's now, each day is Blur's Day, because just they blur into one another. And so, yeah, I took my family out first time. We went and social distance and hit a few golf balls. And the number of people that were obviously intoxicated, like leaving the clubhouse on a Monday night, this Monday, was like, this is a Monday. This isn't like Saturday. These people are just, like literally yelling on a cell phone and halfway stumbling. I'm like, wow, that's okay. Monday Night Football? No, it's Monday. So thanks, Alicia. Appreciate you sharing. Let's see here. Who else said? Corey, let's see. I didn't hear from Corey.
Yeah, I can go.
Okay,
Can you
cool.
hear me okay?
Yeah, you're loud and clear. Good.
Okay. I'm an LMFT at Great Salt Plains Health Center, and I actually only work part-time, but we have all been seeing our patients over telehealth only, and in June, we're going back to seeing patients in the center in the mornings, but then we have to wear our masks and do all of the protocol. So I don't even know if that'll be worth it. They're leaving it up to us whether we want to keep just seeing them on telehealth for a little while longer, and not unless it's just like a kid that absolutely needs to come in. But I mean, staying 6 feet apart from a 5-year-old is difficult anyway.
Oh, that's not, yeah, that's not happening. How do you feel about the mask situation? Are you good? Are you good? Or are you still contemplating like what's best?
I think I'll probably just stay with my sessions on telehealth because I'm currently not seeing any kids anyway. They're all adults. But I think the biggest challenge is just not having the human contact and like the body language, and then kids coming in the room and dogs barking, and it's just constant distraction that's not there when they're in your office.
Yeah, whereas it used to be maybe a pin clicking or a foot tapping, now it's the whole environment is just outrageous.
Exactly. And my boss says if you get through at least 30 minutes, you're good. So we kind of all pat ourselves on the back if we can at least have a 30-minute session and feel like we got something accomplished.
I'm there with you. It's hard to maintain. It really is. Corey, it's good to hear you. I'm glad you could make it today.
Yes, thank you.
Let's see, anybody else left out there? I think I've got Mark and Lauren.
Me.
Oh yeah, hey Kelsey.
Hey.
Thanks for jumping in.
I work at Alpha. I just finished all my supervision hours.
Congrats.
I don't feel like it really slowed down. I've been seeing them on the phone and then in the office. Definitely a lot harder with kids. So if I talked to them on the phone, I just tried to find little activities and stuff to keep their attention, but yeah.
Still going full force though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congrats on the hours. That's a big accomplishment. So you're just waiting on the board to meet and send you back.
Yeah, they meet in June. So.
Nice. Okay. Well, congrats.
Thanks.
Tell me your number when you get it.
Yeah.
See where they're at.
Taylor, can you hear me?
Mark, I can hear you. I can hear you well.
Oh, wow. I've been here since the way, but I just now figured out how to unmute my computer. Sorry.
You're doing good.
I'm an LPC. I work with Alpha Assessment and Counseling. And the pandemic has been a challenge. I have 6 nurses that I see. The highest risk people that I see are the ones who really want to see me in person, which is interesting. When we've been wearing masks if we see people, but we've been doing great portions of our work on Zoom and by telephone. And there's, I think the only thing more difficult than keeping a 5-year-old on the phone for 30 minutes is keeping an 8-year-old on the phone for 30 minutes. But either of those are extremely difficult. But it's been a challenge. But I think really we've survived it incredibly well. In the clients, there's an overlaying anxiety in the whole society. So people who deal with those kinds of issues on a day-to-day basis, it just makes it worse. So I think outside of people being a little grumpier and a little more on edge, it's pretty much we're doing well in adjusting to the different ways we have to do business.
Good. So you said you see 6 nurses. There are 6 nurses on your caseload.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's really. So that's their, their own dynamic. You need to think about a group if they can, obviously with small communities that's hard, but yeah, a group support for the nursing community there. So interesting.
Well, they're really in a hard way because some of them have been furloughed and then those who are working without any staff because they've let everyone else go. So all of them are under an unbelievably additional just uneasiness in that they have to wear those full suits that they only wear when they're dealing with a tuberculosis patient for the past years, right? And so now they have to deal with that all day. It's very difficult for them. It's been a challenge, and their mental health is pretty important too because they have such an effect on everyone else they deal with. So it's been interesting, and it's those of you who pray, you should pray for our healthcare workers, because there's some pressure on them that people don't understand. I mean, just the fear of taking it home to your family is one thing, So it's been very interesting and challenging, I think, for all of us.
That is interesting. I appreciate your perspective, Mark. Thanks. Of Lauren and Kasia. Kasia, did you go? You introduced yourself. Like, okay.
I'll go. I'll sacrifice myself, Kasia. Anyway, I'm Lauren Vanderloo. I work for Enid Public Schools as a school counselor at Glenwood, and I also work for Youth and Family after school. I still continue to see my Youth and Family client over Zoom, and then of course, school-wise, I had different responsibilities. I've taken a lot of food to our different families, and have seen some of the families that way. And all the families that I've seen all the kids that I've seen through bringing them food, definitely expressed that they wish they were back at school and could be there with their friends and with their teachers. So today's been unconventional. I don't have power at home, so my sister-in-law is kindly letting me sit in her dining room and have 3 hours of Zoom meeting. So I have my son here who's playing with my nephew, and luckily he gets to come and play in the pool, but I appreciate her letting me sit in her dining room for 3 hours.
Welcome to the modification club today. I'm among you, but yeah, very cool. So it sounds like you've got the very vulnerable kids that, we have a lot of reports out there that there are higher rates of abuse. Kids are being, hurt, and it's not being reported because they don't have that safety net at school.
Yeah, I definitely have families that I'm aware of in the school that would fall into that category. And unfortunately, it makes us as teachers and school staff even more nervous, because those are really the families that we haven't been able to get a hold of very well and haven't participated in any type of interaction with the school, the teacher, the staff in any way. And so unfortunately that makes us even more uneasy. I know during one of the Zoom meetings, as far as teacher group, we had a discussion, and we were waiting to hear back from what administration decided. But, if we are that worried, are we able to make a call? Can we do welfare checks on those families? And it just came down to what administration wanted us to do.
That's an ethical dilemma too. It's like, where's the line with a welfare check and breaking that, because normally when a kid comes in, you suspect abuse, it's pretty, there's more of a clear mandate of what to do, versus I haven't heard any hiding her hair for this child for quite a while. I worry because it looks like there's activity at the house, especially if you're dropping food by.
Yeah, and it's tough too because, sorry, my sister-in-law is like staring at me through the window. And it's tough too because they didn't have to participate, at least not elementary wise. So we couldn't, say, well, you're not participating anymore. And they weren't required to. They weren't required to have to do those things. So it was a hard decision, I think, for administration to make on what constituted us calling and checking on them. But I also know that, like, my principal went by some of the houses at times too. But
I'm glad there are people up there that care. You have a unique role. A lot of people have had the video distance, and being able to continue to see them, from time to time is pretty powerful. So, thanks. Kasia, you want to just check in? And Kasia was the first one here, and so we had a pretty good conversation before everybody started. So, anyway.
I'm Kasia Spade. I'm LPC. I work for Great Salt Plains Health Center. I did get to see a few people, but then I went on maternity leave, so I haven't been quite as affected, other than like, you know, the fear of a newborn catching virus.
So you probably, when was the birthday? Is she not quite 2 months?
Yeah, not quite 2 months, so March 26th, I went on maternity.
So that would have been right when everything started to hit and be shut down.
Yep.
That's so scary. I'm so sorry. I'm laughing because it's like so much at once.
Yeah,
I
it was
can't
pretty
even
crazy
imagine.
in the hospital because we had just a couple days, and every day the rules would change, and so you never knew, like, if my husband left, if he'd be able to come back.
Oh my goodness, that's
Don't
scary.
serve him food anymore, so like getting him food was difficult, and it was crazy.
What did you give birth here in Enid or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm glad everyone's safe. I'm glad everyone's well. It's good to see you. All right, gang. Well, thanks for jumping in and having a talk about where we are as professionals right now. We are talking about our professional and personal identities, and what we've seen is those are definitely blurred more and more as we've endured this crisis and this situation. So as you're practicing at home, your home life becomes your professional life. So yeah, let me see if I can open the latest rendition of while people were talking, I updated the PowerPoint to the one that I'm supposed to have. There it is. Okay, so you guys have done this, the name, professional identity, personal identity. So let's jump into our topic and make some progress. So what do you remember, and I'll just take a couple people, we won't hear from all of us. What do you remember from your ethical training from graduate school? Anything? How did that come off? How were you trained? What things kind of stood out to you, if anything? If you don't remember, you don't remember.
Well, some of us haven't been in graduate school for a while.
Right.
But,
Early 2000s.
But what I do remember is feeling just really uneasy. Like there didn't seem to be clear, you know, if this happens, do this, and hey, you're going to get out there and good luck to you kind of thing. I mean, it was discussed a lot, but I feel like that's kind of what I remember, a little bit of uneasiness and being scared.
I concur with that. I was right there as well. Anyone else take away something different?
I know one thing they hit hard when I was there was confidentiality. And even though it's a child, you still have to respect their confidentiality. And finding that when a parent's, you know, drilling you, or the kid, you know, basically, so what they say, what they talk about, what they tell you, what you tell them. I had a situation where there was a lot of tension between the parents. They were divorced, and one parent, you know, was like refusing to let the other parent see the children. So then the kids missed that parent and wanted to talk about them, and then the kids would tell the other parent, you know, I talked about, you know, my mom today and blah blah blah. And then I got a very angry phone call from the parent who had, you know, the kids in their possession, and was like, you know, I don't want you talking about their mom with them, and, you know, trying to, and I was like, you know, I'm sorry, but, you know, patient client led session, and, you know, if that's what's bothering them, then that's what we'll discuss. And that they almost quit counseling because of that. You know, so that's one thing that I remember most, is just confidentiality and keeping that trust and rapport with the client, even if it's against the parents' wishes, basically.
Yeah, that is a tricky one to navigate. We have one of the ethical dilemmas we'll talk about today kind of involves that in sort of a way. So yeah, confidentiality is definitely important. Who in their graduate training felt like they really stressed you knowing the rules, like the ACA Code of Ethics or LMFT Code of Ethics. Really, there was a focus on kind of memorizing these rules and being able to not kind of sort of, but knowing the rules. I've got a thumbs up from Brittany. I felt like that was it. I felt like in my own training, and this has been some time, 17 years ago, I mean, a long time ago, just kind of knowing the rules, memorizing the rules, working through some vignettes, some case studies, but and trying to apply them. But I don't know, I'm kind of like Brittany said, just kind of uneasy that, man, there's a lot to know out there, and I'm going to step in a big pile and not to know what to do with it. Who felt like because I've heard this too from supervisees in different occasions, by show of hands, who felt like their stress was make sure you always consult with a colleague? That was what was stressed coming out of ethics. Okay. That was kind of, yeah, I've got a lot of hands there. That's really where in 2005, when the Code of Ethics changed, they really moved toward, okay, make sure you consult, because if you're trying to fly solo on ethical decisions, you can get up a creek without a paddle. So make sure that you're at least talking to other colleagues. And so that's been a good movement. I can tell you from where I'm at in school, they've moved in a somewhat different direction, not completely. And so we'll talk about that today. And it's kind of a different way of approaching ethical training. And so we'll talk about that today. How do you, in this case, let's just kind of talk about this real quickly. How do you make ethical decisions, and what is your process? Just a couple of folks. How do you make ethical decisions?
I call you.
Well, you know how much time I have currently, so let's say Taylor Randolph doesn't respond to your email for a couple of weeks, so and you have a client that needs a day, needs a decision back in 24 hours. Then what is your? I appreciate that, Sean, but yeah.
Then I call Melissa.
Well, I was gonna say that I generally look at our code of ethics on our licensure. To me, that's my first go-to.
Okay, so kind of going maybe the ACA Code of Ethics and also maybe even the Oklahoma rules.
Yep.
Because sometimes those are not quite, they're not quite enmeshed, but they're pretty close.
Right.
Okay, anybody do anything different? Yeah, I'm one that tends to reach out to colleagues right off the bat. Again, that's after going through where I just felt uneasy, that although that wasn't stressed in my own program, after hearing from students as a supervisor, I learned from you too, from students as a supervisor, because I heard so many people coming out of the program, well, I'm supposed to consult, because I was under the different ethical code. I was under the 2005 Code of Ethics, but then I was after that they changed it, but that wasn't what I learned. So then I became familiar with that. But it was it wasn't me just reading that Code of Ethics, it was my interaction with colleagues. So that's very important. And that's still very much encouraged in our ethical codes. And this is an important one for where we're going today. So anybody care to read this quote? I don't care to.
Adversity does not build character, it reveals it.
Okay. So has anybody heard that quote before? Folks familiar with that one? Okay. Yeah. What does that mean?
You show your true character when you're tested.
Yeah. Yeah, you do show your real character when you're tested. There's that, can you teach ethics? Can you teach character? Or is it just kind of instilled with us? Is it something that we just kind of walk around with? What do y'all think?
I think ethics is based on a moral platform. It's based on a moral issue, and ultimately ethics is of no value if you have no morality. And morality is of no value if you have no ethics. Ethics is a mere, all it is the applying of your morality to your everyday life. If you don't, by the way, if you don't believe that stealing is wrong, if you grew up in a family of thieves and you get into some place and they go, oh, it's really wrong to steal. And you go, what do you mean it's wrong to steal? Everyone I've ever known has done nothing but steal. So you can't talk to him about his ethics involved about stealing because he has none. You understand? Now, we see as society, I understand we have societal issues and norms, but it still has to be based on something. Your morality has to be based on some idea or ideal. And so your ethics has to be based, I believe, on your morality. And if you don't care much about right and wrong, then why would ethics be of major concern to you, right? Then your only ethical consideration would be what can you get by with legally? And that's certainly in our field, there's a broad chasm between what you can get by with legally and what we should do professionally, I think. And that's just a personal opinion. But I think ethics is, and by the way, what we do, I think consultation is of the greatest of value in these issues because obviously if it's an ethical issue that you're having a dilemma with, it's not your average normal, am I going to take is this guy wanting to pay me off under the table or such and such and such? It's generally much more complicated than that. It has to do with multiple people. So what we do is we consult a lot. I mean, because 5 minds are better than one in trying to determine the best way to deal with anything. So that's, I think, our secret is to get together and then we can apply whichever model we want to use collectively. But we affect these in the agency. We nearly always affect them with staffing and share it, talk with 4 or 5 of us, we have a better shot.
Yeah, I like your well-lit room kind of analogy there. If you have 5 people together, it's hard to, get away from really being, at least finding an ethical core and a moral character somewhere amongst those 5 people. The more people that, if you're struggling with a decision with a client and you're reticent to reach out to somebody and talk about it, probably you need to start questioning why that is. So yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's character is something that we kind of come to the table with already, and then that determines our ethical framework. Yeah.
I think a big part of it is as long as an individual is self-aware, which is a big if. An ethical dilemma puts us all on equal footing because it challenges our values. It challenges any preconceived notions that we might have about what we should do, because the nature of it is an internal conflict. And so I think that's why it kind of puts us on equal footing. We first have to be aware that there's an internal conflict. And if we are, it's difficult to find our footing. And that's what makes this so challenging, is that we can't necessarily rely on maybe a kind of a foundation that we're comfortable with, because it challenges that. And so, we're trying to find our sea legs with something, and we don't know, it's just, and I think that's, again, the biggest part of that is being aware that there's an issue in the first place. And so if there's something that comes up and that could be an ethical dilemma for 4 people, but maybe not the 5th because they don't see it as an ethical dilemma.
And they may not take it to the other 4 people because they don't see it. It's kind of like, I'll use Mark's analogy with the somebody getting paid off under the table, maybe in the thief. And that's just kind of the way things worked as I was growing up. And I don't really see nothing, I don't have any dissonance at all inside me because, and so that's kind of the heart of what this presentation is about personal disposition. In other words, we may have a personal disposition and a professional disposition, and those bleed over. Those are interchangeable. And so what I've noticed in the last 5 years since the ethical codes changed in 2014, we still consult amongst other people, but there's a much bigger emphasis on self-awareness and even gatekeeping within programs, within counselor education programs, where intentionally there are a lot of situations that are meant to help expose professional disposition. So for instance, I have a colleague who's doing her dissertation on gatekeeping and professional disposition, meaning if somebody kind of comes into the program with their own, this is my worldview and this is kind of how I operate, and I don't really have a lot of self-insight or self-awareness. And using Mark's example, I don't really, there would be other things besides this, but metaphorically, I don't see really anything wrong with getting paid under the table, that for doing this. So yeah, you need a good report to the judge. Okay, you got $100. Look at that. Attended 16 counseling sessions, and it has a glowing, I have great prognosis for recovery for this person. So now you get your license back. You don't have to see your probation officer anymore because you did everything. So we have an emphasis now, even more so, to help identify these these professional dispositions. So you can gatekeep somebody, and where her dissertation is going is, okay, what are the specific things that we look at for professional disposition where, that person doesn't need to be in the field because they're going to harm somebody. So I want you to think about this, because again, this will go into our next activity. Think about a very trying time in your personal or professional life. So think about something that came up where it just was extreme. There was a lot of dissonance internally. You're just dealing with a lot of inner conflict, and it's really trying for you personally and professionally. Try, if you can, let's put it in your professional life. What was something that just really ate at you in a bad way? And you don't have to tell it, but think about that. And then what did you learn about your own values from that experience? So let's keep that in mind. I'm going to have us do something here, and I was going to email this out, but I'm going to have to do it on the screen because I ran into the technical difficulties this morning. So let me see if I can find this file that I was going to email to you. Here it is. Okay, it didn't like that. Bear with me since I've got you on the edge of the cliff. I am going to share my screen with some value. So again, think about the thing that really caused you a lot of I'm thinking of one right now. It happened 12 years ago. And it really changed me fundamentally, the way that I approach not just ethics. I would say it changed me in the way I approach a lot of my own life. Some of you may have been involved in that situation, but I'm not going to speak about it here, but it was very difficult, involved a supervisor, involved a lot of unethical behavior. But in the end, I was struggling to try to find what I was going to do. I didn't have a very clear direction on where to go. My ethical training in school, I got out of school, and I just felt uneasy. Like Brittany said, I don't really have a clear direction of how I'm supposed to make a decision. I reached out to a couple of folks, to try to work through what I saw as a very significant ethical dilemma, a very difficult situation to be in. And in the end, what I did, I ended up just writing possible scenarios on a piece of paper. In the end, I didn't really use anything very formal. I used just kind of like my own kind of thought process. I'm just going to, like we would in a journal, like if something's really troubling us, we might give a client an assignment. We'll journal this out, and so I thought, what are the possible outcomes from this really difficult ethical situation? And so the outcomes were, well, number one, you can just go along with it. And so by going along with it, I would have implicated myself in, in some illegal behavior. This was very not legal. It was not just unethical. It was illegal, and people can get into a lot of trouble for that. So by virtue of me knowing about it, what are we supposed to do when we have a situation where we know something is unethical? What are we supposed to do as counselors if we encounter a colleague who is doing something that's unethical?
I think we would probably all say report it, but that's easier said than done sometimes.
Yeah, especially if you've had a relationship with this colleague for many, many years. You may have maybe you've gone out to dinner with the person a couple of times. You got to know who their family is. And so now there's not only this professional relationship, but also maybe a dual relationship, personal relationship there too, which makes ethical decision-making much more difficult. So I appreciate that, Corey. You reach out and you report it, but that's easier said than done.
Discuss it with them first.
Yeah. You try to discuss it with them first. I appreciate that, Brittany. That's unless it's just something, like somebody's sleeping with their client, or somebody is maybe doing something that's very harmful to other people. Where by virtue of you confronting them, and you have conclusive, irrefutable evidence that this is happening. Normally if it's like a gray area, you definitely want to go talk to them. Hey, have you thought about this? Is this the right thing to do? That's easier said than done too, especially if they're possibly a friend, possibly you have another outside of the professional workplace relationship. So what I did in this situation is I could have gone along with it, but that would have implicated me. I could have quit. I could have quit my position, my job, and left and just gotten away from it and started new. I hadn't been there very long. I'd been there like a month. And so I would have been punishing myself professionally at the end of the day when I looked at this for the unethical behaviors of someone else. So that's not appropriate. I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do. And thirdly, I could report it. I could report it and try to work through it. None of those, anybody ever face a situation where none of your options appear very appealing? Well, that was the case. Each one of those were fraught with very difficult and unsavory kind of resolutions, and it was hard. It was thinking back as far as the situation that came up for me, it was the hardest thing I've ever dealt with professionally. And it bled over into my personal life. You know, I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't, wasn't doing well physically. So those things really start to impact us. And I will say that changed my values as a person. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to share the screen, and I've got a document I'm going to put up here. I know if you have something to write with, please, if you can, get something you can at least take notes on. I'm going to try to find an old receipt here. I'll do this with you because this is a new activity for me too. So let me see if I can get this thing going. All right, so here comes, so basically I'm going to share a list of values, and based on that situation, circle the things that became important to you. That through that adversity, this is what the situation revealed about you. This is what the situation revealed about your character. Okay, can folks see this this list of values up here? It may be pretty small, but I'm not able to get everything on there. So let's everybody write down at least 5 values that based on that really difficult experience that became very, very important to you. I'm having trouble keeping it to 5. If you go over, it's okay. Maybe make some honorable mentions. Let's take about another minute and we'll discuss. Okay, gang. Well, so thinking about all those and thinking about your situation, let me do something different here. I'm going to take some notes, hopefully. All right, what things came up for people as you considered your values? We can just have a brainstorming session. What folks write down?
Honesty.
Growth.
Trust.
Peace.
Pride.
Optimism.
Openness.
Self-discipline.
Compassion.
Accountability.
Balance.
Understand.
Perseverance.
Good. Oops. Did I get everyone there? Balance, understanding, perseverance. Okay. I'm going to add a couple of mine. Authenticity. This one definitely would not have been there before because I have always been, growing up, I was always pretty independent. I really depended on collaboration with others. Truth. What else?
I had on my list kindness.
Kindness.
Justice.
Self-respect.
Thank you, Sean. That was on my list too. Self-respect.
Loyalty.
Ooh. I thought about that one for a second. And then I opted out of it. But I think, well, I'm not saying loyalty's not good, but in my own situation, I didn't choose that one. Put down family, fairness. This is a good list, gang. If you used a situation like mine that was deeply meaningful to you and deeply formative, hopefully you saw some things that emerged that maybe weren't there before, things that you hadn't considered possibly of value in past situations. But again, go back and consider that quote: adversity does not build character, it reveals it. So no, those are things that we learn from ourselves by the adverse situations that we encounter. The next part of that activity is actually supposed to help us learn how to operate Zoom. Just a moment. This is the second half of the activity. Is this worksheet. And so as we teach students now in ethics, it's really to kind of help people discern what they value, what their personal values are, and then how these things feed into and interact with. So I had you choose 5. If you had to choose among your 5, which one is the most important among those 5 that you listed?
Truth.
Okay, got to vote for truth.
Self-respect.
Honesty.
Trust.
Accountability.
Accountability. I'm going to add mine in there. Mine would ended up being authenticity.
Peace.
Does this represent everyone? If you have something different, please share as your most important. That's pretty good. We've got consensus with these being the most important. I anticipate there are probably others besides just truth, self-respect, honesty, trust. Let's see about these three: authenticity, trust, honesty, truth. Now those appear very, very similar. If I'm looking at what's kind of come out here: truth, honesty, authenticity. Those are very similar. Accountability. I'm right there. I was in the situation. That was my number 2 thing. Peace. That's interesting that we've kind of got a little consensus here. What does that tell us about? And I'm learning as you go. What does that tell us about the well-lit room kind of example? If we can share and we can be authentic with others, that's when we have ethical situations. That's when we also meet the ethical expectations of others. Because we have a pretty big group here, and 4 of those very, very closely aligned that had to do with trust, honesty, openness, authenticity. Interesting. All right, let's go on from here. Okay, this is what we just did. We can also do a moral orientation scale, and that kind of helps you. And I think I'll share that via email with you rather than take more time in our class here. But that will help you discern what's more important to you morally. And I can share what it looks like. But it's got like 5 different areas, and you try to locate your highest score in one of those 5 different areas. And so I'll share that later via email, like I had intended to before we hit the technical snags today. What we find is in the field of counseling, we find that Kitchener's 1984 moral principles really guide the profession. They do a lot to inform and guide a lot of the other ethical codes. So when we think about Kitchener's moral principles, we think about things like autonomy. What is autonomy? If you're respecting your client's autonomy, what are you doing?
You're giving them permission to be themselves.
Okay. I agree. So tell me more about being themselves.
Well, you're not steering them.
Okay.
You're not you're trying to you're preventing your own influence as far as your own values.
Yeah, so kind of what you talked about before with not inserting your own beliefs about COVID-19, but still trying to influence them with facts. So respecting their autonomy in that regard. So so cool. So also justice. Justice is one of Kitchener's moral principles. What might be concept of justice as applied to clients? Maybe one thing, you could do one thing for one client and also do something, the same thing for the other client. You're not, having preferential treatment for one over and against the other. The concept of beneficence. We got into this so we could do some good. We got into this so we could actually help some people. This is what we're doing, actually making a difference to make somebody's life better. Do no harm, non-maleficence. Actually, thinking back on my own ethical training, I think that was the number one thing I came out of ethics class was just do no harm, which so you don't have to do very much to do no harm, but you risk not doing anything at all if you do no harm. And then fidelity. What's fidelity?
Loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely. Loyalty, being trustworthy. That concept of informed consent. Not only informing autonomy, somebody to make choices for themselves, but also being faithful to the client that, hey, I'm not going to go out and blab about our session to everybody in the community, the stuff that's going on with you. What happens in situations where dissonance occurs between these? Well, if you recalled your ethical dilemma or the dissonance provoking situation that we just discussed, you probably found some dissonance between these. I definitely had some conflicts between fidelity to a supervisor and also justice and non-maleficence. So there were some conflicts going on between those big codes there. Are you doing something that's hurting others? Are you being just to everybody in the situation? Is there equality here? And so what happens in situations where personal values conflict with professional values? So, your own values that you just, and especially those really strong ones, a lot of those align. However, I might say that if you came from a culture where, loyalty, you dirty rat, you don't, snitches get stitches, that kind of thing. If you come from that sort of situation and where you need to keep things quiet and you can't ever disclose, and oftentimes when we make disclosures for families, we, in a way, we kind of take away some of their autonomy, because if a child reports abuse, we've kind of, there's a conflict there. There should be a little bit of dissonance within us. This may cause some unintended ripples, but I've got to, because this is my ethical core. I have seen situations where clients haven't reported, or your counselors haven't reported, and it has a lot of unintended consequences. It's not our job to be a friend. When we have that license up there on the wall, it's our job to use those parameters, what our profession gives us, and operate within those. So this could possibly be a dissonance involving situation. So I don't know if you took DSM or abnormal psych, or even your licensure supervisor. Don't ever diagnose the client in the first session, and then the insurance company comes along and says, "Yeah, I'm going to need that diagnosis." Gang, let's take 5 minutes. We've been going pretty strong for about an hour and a half. Let's take 5-10 minutes to take a break, get a little coffee, and we'll come back and we'll finish this thing strong with some things you guys can use.
Taylor, I may need to log back on in my iPad, so you may see me disconnect, and you're walking away. Never mind.
Okay, gang. Well, welcome back. We'll jump back in and keep going. So who feels some pressure ethically to make that first diagnosis right off the bat. Jay's feeling some pressure. I've felt some pressure. What's the risk? What's the possible conflict there? What's the problem with labeling somebody with ADHD if they're really just suffering from a really just disruptive and horrible home life?
Well, you're gonna minimize the the causation, or you're gonna minimize trauma. Well, theoretically you would. I think that in my own head sometimes I think as labels as more of something that someone else needs versus it's more of an expectation of the system than it is actually working with people. And so there's things we do to satisfy the system, and there's things that we do in practice that actually benefit people. And so in my mind, those things are a lot of times divided.
Yeah, I'm hearing some dissonance there. No, I understand with labeling a child as dysfunctional versus, okay, this is a normal reaction given the environment that they're coming out of. So we, as a system, put the dysfunction label on the child versus, okay, they're merely reacting in the best way that their brain can make sense of to survive in this environment. So no, there's the professor speak, which the insurance companies probably don't like, but yeah, there's definitely a problem with giving somebody a label of dysfunction that they may carry with them the rest of their lives, just because an insurance company says you have to give us a diagnosis or you can't see them. How do people rectify that? What do you do when you're confronted with that situation? What do people tend to do?
In my situation, if I'm not ready to diagnose, I'll just diagnose an adjustment disorder. And then when I am ready to diagnose, then I'll up it to whatever it needs to be. I don't think there's any true harm in an adjustment disorder because everybody goes through life adjustments.
Yeah, no, I agree with that approach. That's pretty useful rather than putting a heavy-handed, oh, nope, looks like you're depressed. Am I, or am I just going through some really crappy times due to COVID? There might be quite a few people out there. Now, we all meet clinical, threshold for depression now, but is this situational, or should we think about this now as a lifelong battle? Because really, when you apply a label like that, you almost infer a lifelong cyclical battle with depression. So no, I appreciate that. Anybody take a different approach?
I was just going to second that. That's really, I try to find the most benign, most generalized route I can go. I think that's how I kind of rectify it.
Yeah, our psychiatrist at when I worked at Meadow Lake used disruptive behavior disorder not otherwise specified. It's like 312.9 is the old V code, or the old DSM-4 code. I'm not sure I don't think it changed. I think it's the same, but that can be another way to at least meet the insurance threshold without, what are you saying? You've got disruptive behavior. Yep. A lot of times the kids that we get referred to have disruptive behavior. So is that a lifelong battle? Well, Sean, I think you've got that disruptive behavior disorder, NOS. It's always kind of afflicted you. So Anyway, yeah, there are ways. There are ways to not encounter so much dissonance. What helps guide us, and I did include these links, are actual professional codes of ethics. So the AAMFT, American Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, is available online, fully HTML. It's fully online here, where you can just pull it up, and then your codes of ethics are right here, easy to access. Talking about multiple relationships. Obviously, this is pretty self-explanatory. Sexual intimacy with current clients or other members of the family is prohibited. So you don't need a whole lot of going into detail with some of these referrals, non-abandonment, confidentiality. In many ways, these appear, exploitation. You can't exploit your clients. In many ways, these are very similar, parallel to the ACA codes. There are a lot of there's a lot of crossover, and so those are out there for folks if you want them. One thing that I will say about the ACA codes, the American Counseling Association codes. Yes, I want to open it. I'm giving a presentation. Don't give me that. The ACA codes tend to be in a lot more detail and tend to cover quite a bit. I don't say it's quite a bit more, but covers a few more areas. And so our topic for today actually involves ACA code section I, which is resolving ethical issues. So I'm gonna scroll forward. And so, sometimes we can go back and forth. If we don't find a code within our own discipline, we can look, I've used some social work codes before. One of the social work codes that I used was in a situation where kind of like, was it Aranda talking about not wanting to disclose to a parent where it may have been harmful to the child? There's actually a statute in social work code that says, if you have information from the child that you're seeing that could be harmful, in other words, if the parents found out about it, then you have a legal right and the responsibility to withhold that information from the parent. So let's say that the child comes in and says, yeah, my mom's boyfriend is, or let's just say it's the actual bio parent. Let's just say, my parent is touching me inappropriately. Well, is that your job as the clinician to go in and start asking the parent whether they're touching inappropriately? But your child just disclosed to me? What could be the harm in that?
Retaliation.
Absolutely. Retaliation upon the child from the parent. And so, yeah, but sometimes your client may say, you can't ever tell anybody this. I've had that happen on more than one occasion. And then you've got that inner conflict, that fidelity. Gosh, I want to keep seeing this client because we've made some progress and they trust me enough to share this. They've never told anybody this before in their lives. But yet, we have a moral responsibility to try to protect that child through the faulty systems that are in place. They aren't perfect systems. They're overwhelmed, they're overburdened, and sometimes things don't go through the way that they should. But as far as what we're concerned, and in that case, going back to the situation with the child disclosing, we wouldn't disclose that to a parent. And we have some legal standing. And it's not explicitly written in some of the codes, but I did find it in social work. So we can use some crossover. So going down to section I, which talks about making ethical decisions explicitly. How do we make ethical decisions? What does the ACA tell us? Well, it tells us we behave in an ethical and legal manner. We're concerned with client welfare first and foremost, but we also hold other counselors to the same standards and are willing to take appropriate action to ensure that standards are upheld. So like Corey mentioned, yeah, I'd be go and report. If you see another counselor doing something unethically. Counselors strive to resolve ethical dilemmas with direct and open communication, that, well-lit room, and seek consultation with colleagues and supervisors when necessary. So most of you have already jumped in and said, hey, this is what we do. So you're on the right track. You got firm legal footing here to stand on. Counselors incorporate ethical practice in their daily professional work. And we're doing professional development right now. Counselors become familiar with ACA policy and procedures for processing complaints of ethical violations. Is anybody in here a member of the American Counseling Association? I'm the only one. Yeah, it's over $100 a month. You do get counseling today. You get discounts on some hotel rental cars, which I know are very useful right now. But you can, you do get a few perks with the membership. And so here it goes. Ethical decision making. This is what I was interested in. When counselors are faced with an ethical dilemma, they use and document. Now this wasn't pulled out for me in my ethical training. They use and document as appropriate an ethical decision-making model that may include, but is not limited to, consultation, consideration of relevant ethical standards, principles. Those were the 5 moral principles we covered from Kitchener there, and your own moral principles, and laws. Generation of potential courses of action, deliberation of risks and benefits, and selection of an objective decision, that's a key word, based on the circumstances and welfare of all involved. Whew. What do you take, what's your main takeaway from the ACA's advice, written advice on how to make ethical decisions, especially ethical dilemmas? Anything that seems unfamiliar there? Who's used an ethical decision-making model to make an ethical decision? Sean has. There's not a lot of hands going up. Well, what are y'all doing? The ACA is telling you. Bear with me, I'm over dramatic on purpose, but what are y'all doing? The ACA is telling you got to rely on one of these models. Interesting, right? Well, you're not alone in that there weren't very many of us that are using an ethical. I'm going to come back to this case study in just a minute because our discussion just took a little different shape. Possibly, if I can get the PowerPoint to go up. I'm trying to integrate two PowerPoints here. Okay, we'll just use this one. This is what I've got available. Just have to go with it. So let's talk about decision-making models, because that's really what we train students in school now as well. I mean, it's really, with the last few years of Dr. Kirby teaching at Northwestern and what I'm learning here, this is really where we've moved in ethics. Besides like examining your own personal beliefs and your own values, is documenting and using a decision-making model. And so most models have these kind of things in common. First of all, you identify the problem. If you can, you involve the client in the decision-making process. Sounds a lot like Jay's autonomy. You don't start making decisions for them outside of them having some input. You review the codes of ethics, like Melissa mentioned, and consider the principles and virtues. So consider your own morals and the morals of the profession. This is new. This is new. Tune into your feelings. Because the ACA says be objective, but yet, a lot of these models that they're putting out is tune into your feelings. Why might that be important? Because we're going for objective, but feelings aren't objectives, right? You're not objective.
Well, you gotta identify what could be influencing you, and feelings can be an influence.
There's that self-awareness. Brittany, what were you gonna say?
Exactly what he said.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's self-awareness, being attuned to who you are and what's coming up for you. Are your values getting in the way? Are you inserting something that shouldn't be there? Do you have a right to feel this way? What's going on? And then consult with colleagues and experts. That's a big piece. A lot of us we've all had that, okay, you better go consult. If you've got this dilemma, go consult. Consider context. That's a little bit different. So if you consider context, that can be difficult, because if we're in a situation where, our license might be on the line, it gets very easy to get tunnel vision and focused on, okay, what's going to happen to me? And sometimes that happens. But you also want to consider context. The bigger picture, what's going to happen to all these other people with this decision. And I think even when you make a decision like I just alluded to, like if you had a disclosure, I had a child disclose abuse by a parent. It's still important to consider all the things that could happen, because there may be something else along the line that you could possibly take an action that could mitigate some of the harm, mitigate some of the conflict that's going to come from this. Identify desired outcomes and consider possible actions to achieve the outcomes. And then choose. So basically, there's a lot of them out there. At last count, there are over in print. If I'm quoted right, I think the number in my head is something like 57. And I may be underestimating that. So what they've tried to do is try to look, because people will come out and make their own decision-making model to try to clarify, make it a little bit better. Here's some more of the common elements. What's the problem? What's the more principles? What do the codes say? Consult with somebody. What's the desired outcome? What possible actions could be taken? And then act on the choice. In the end, you can't just sit there, with your feet on two boats. Like I don't want to act, but I do want to act, and you end up following. You have to actually act at the end of the day. So there's been some criticism. There's been some, because there are a lot of models out there, and as evidenced by the show of hands, not many of us have used them. There have been some criticism. So this comes from back in 2013. The models are not considered validated. What do you have to do to validate something? What does that mean? Come on, researchers. No, nobody went into research. Miranda, what were you thinking?
I was thinking research.
Yeah, they haven't done empirical studies to measure, are these effective or not? Be hard to do, right? Because every ethical dilemma is just a little bit different. And how are you going to get consent for study before you even because you don't know where the ethical dilemma is going to come up or not, depending on your client. Thankfully, most clients, we don't come up with really hard ethical choices. Well, it depends on your caseload, I guess. Never mind. If you work with a lot of child welfare cases, they're fraught with ethical dilemmas. Models are substantive approaches based in theory and practice. No research to support these approaches are followed, valid, or representative of what is actually done by counselors. So this is what these guys found in 2013. They found it basically what we found here today. Nobody follows these. There's a bunch of them out there, but that's nice. Nobody really steps through them. What tends to happen is people tend to make split-second decisions and oftentimes you are required in therapy while you're sitting in your counselor's chair to make a decision on how you're going to respond ethically. You don't have time to, wait a minute, I'm going to pause this session for 24 minutes. I need to go do some things, okay? So just hold that thought. Most times, we encounter something like this in session, we need a quick response. What are you going to do? So this decision-making requires self-reflection and awareness of one's own perspectives as they engage in the process. We've really found that personal morals shape reactions and responses to professionally challenging dilemmas. So those things that you just identified that were important to you, that's something that you'll carry with you now into these ethically gray situations. And that kind of and I will say this, I mean, as a supervisor, because I used to be just a counselor, and I was much more gray as a counselor. And that's just, I would, okay, I've got to consider this, I've got to consider this. There's so many things to possibly consider. And when I moved into a supervisor role, specifically after this situation, I became much more black and white accountability. That was a personality change for me. It's a real shift. And so that's important. That's important for us to know kind of where we're coming from, because even sometimes a supervisor can be wrong too. Supervisor could be, maybe that supervisor is maybe too black and white. That supervisor is too rigid. And there could be a middle ground if that supervisee or counselor and their supervisor get together and kind of brainstorm. Anybody ever get frustrated with your supervisor before? You know, I'm sure most of us at some point have been really frustrated with our supervisor in the direction, because there might have been a conflict for us. One of the things that I intended to come out of all of our value sharing was like this mosaic of all these different values. And because we all come to the table with a little different perspective on the world. And so trying to combine those, I used to supervise with Tippy Rasp at Youth and Family, and her and I often saw things very differently. And I think Keisha's smiling, and probably Lauren somewhere is smiling too, because we come at the same problem from very different approaches. And I'm not saying one of us was more wrong or right. I was mostly right. I'm just kidding. Than the other. But typically, if you combine those, you come out with something amenable to everybody. So again, coming back to the table and sharing with colleagues is important. This has come out in the. I don't know how I feel about this. I'll throw this out there for you all. There's a new perspective that's gained a lot of sway in counselor education. It's really a constructivist perspective. And it's basically saying this: reality is based on one's position and current knowledge base. And so if you're approaching an ethical dilemma from a constructivist perspective, you're basically taking the client's perspective and your perspective and just trying to really meld an agreement out of those. And I'll make that a little more clear. Let me show you an actual constructivist perspective. If I can find it here, hopefully quickly pull this up. Golly. So I'll show you what I'm encountering when I pull these up, as I get these dead ends because something's linked wrong. It's not on. I didn't know I saved it on Bing. I didn't plan on it, but one other. So let's see here. Well, anyway, I'll scrap that idea for now. We may come back to it. Here's some more evidence about decision-making models. These are other studies besides just the one I cited. Counselors don't really employ the decision models. They rely on a combination of their own beliefs, values, and professional obligations. oftentimes, they found this about psychologists. This isn't just counselors. This is like, PhD level psychologists. Non-rational processes and personal values often guide ethical decision-making in practice. So, as counselors get a bad name for just being pseudoscience and just all feelies and not really, well, the psychologists, they rely on their personal values too. They don't go back and consult their codes. It's just kind of what their gut is telling them, especially when faced with stress. Examining the prospect and process of bracketing. So there's a thing that you're supposed to do called bracketing when you have a conflict, and there's some issues with that too. There's a recent study that called for counselors to be authentic when making ethical decisions. So there's really this push, again, like we've talked about today, of really having your own values inform the process, but also being self-aware and being able to talk about those values with other people. Okay, let me cut to the chase. Let's do some work. We definitely have to put this into practice. So let's do some work. Okay, I'm going to share this. This is actually comes from a real situation that I encountered a few years ago. And let's see what we come up with. And I'm going to share a few different, and I'll have you work on this in small groups. And I'm going to share a few different models with you to kind of step through. All right, so anybody want to read this? Because I can't get everybody's face on the screen and read it at the same time. Nobody wants to read it, but would somebody please, for like 64,000 bonus points?
I'll read it.
All right, thanks.
Working with a 15-year-old female client, Rosa, she presents as significantly defensive, closed, and resistant to treatment. She was referred to counseling by her mother, who is also participating in family counseling with another clinician at your agency. Rosa's grades have been decreasing significantly this semester, and her attitude at home has become increasingly defiant. Rosa stayed out all night against her parents' wishes. Her father is married to her mother and works long hours in the oil field. He is very angry with Rosa and is also angry with his wife for allowing these behaviors. In the third session, Rosa discloses to you that she is 3 months pregnant by her 27-year-old boyfriend who is native to Mexico but is working in the U.S. What ethical principles should be considered? What actions do you take in this case?
Okay. So I'm sure I've got some visceral reactions from some folks. First of all, and I was going to make you guys do small groups, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I've had a second thought just because we're getting shorter on time. Write out what you do, and then we'll work on this as a group, okay? So this is what I want you to do. Let's all take 5 minutes here, and let's consider this individually, what we would do as clinicians, kind of step by step. So if you can, we've kind of looked at the decision-making model, and I'll give us one to end on. We've got some consensus in the field to use. But remember, the ACA code asked us to document how we make a decision. And this is going to protect you when you are actually, if you ever get into trouble, like, how did you come by this decision? When you hit moral dilemmas, it's important to document these things. So if you could, let's take 5 minutes and kind of document some steps on what we would do. I'll work on it with you. Let's take a couple more minutes. Okay. Let's talk about our dilemma. What first of all, if y'all recall the ethical principles of autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, fidelity, and justice, what moral principles are involved here in this case? Go ahead, Brittany.
Autonomy?
Yeah. What about autonomy? Why is that a concern?
Well, I mean, you have to think about where your client is coming from as regarding how she wants to tell her parents and, you know, self-disclosure and that fun stuff.
Yeah, it's super fun in this case, right? Not so much at all. Yeah, a 15-year-old in the state of Oklahoma obviously has limited autonomy, but still they are 15 and they are pregnant. So yeah, what else? I might even put in the family. You know, in this case, in this culture, you know, family is well, we don't know the whole story about the culture. I'm kind of making an assumption based on my experience with the case. Rosa in this case was an American of Hispanic descent. So anyway, what else? I would say beneficence. You want to do good here. What is good? What does good look like? We definitely want to pursue non-maleficence. What's the possible harm in this situation?
Maybe her parents kick her out of the house.
Yeah, Dad's already furious. He doesn't know that she's pregnant. Just, you know, she's snuck out, and maybe parents kick her out. We don't know about possible DV, and the dad's angry at the mom here. So is this a domestically violent situation? We don't know.
We have well, of course, the first place coming from child welfare. I mean, that's the first thing in these situations that always immediately jumps out at me is, well, I've got to make a call. I've got to make a report. But the thing that comes with that is if I'm looking long term, the thing that conflicts with me is more than likely this man, the father, at the very least, is going to be deported. And we're going to have a child growing up and that's going to without their father, which is going to contribute to an ACE score. So that's there as well.
Yeah, definitely in the non-maleficence category. Do we cause an ACE? Do we cause a separation from a parent? And then maybe even, is there a justice issue in this? Maybe that's the justice issue. You know, what is just for the child? I can tell you that you know, from the culture and the case situation I recall, there was no discussion of abortion. That was not an option. In this case, as far as the family was concerned, it was not. So we've got all 5 of those in play and possibly in conflict with each other. So then what did you do? What actions did y'all take? Let's start listing the actions.
Sit down and talk with the client first.
Yeah, that's what I put down too. Talk with client. What do you talk with the client about?
Find out whether her parents are aware.
Okay. Parents know. What else?
Make sure she's informed that you're a mandated reporter.
Yes. Mandated reporter. That's the least you. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to point out, which is something I think we always have to remember, because if we've done our job at the beginning and let them know the issues we have to report, and then they disclose something like this, it's usually pretty clear that they know we're going to have to report it. So talking with them about what type of outcome are you looking for with this?
Yeah. What outcome are you seeking? What are your goals? So that really informs autonomy. What else?
Safety, just to see, like, you know, if what she predicts will happen, what she thinks is going to most likely play out. And I think that kind of informs how you go about explaining to her family, you know, because sometimes it might be safer to call child abuse, you know, call DHS, and sometimes it might be safer to do a family therapy session. I mean, timing, you have to do both, but I'm saying which one plays out which way.
Yes, giving her the option there. Is it more appropriate for her to disclose first? Is it more appropriate just to call in the mandate? So what's the mandate here? So I haven't really covered the obvious, because I went straight to the actions. What's the mandate here? Because I got some serious pushback from the counselor on this, because they didn't agree with the mandate. What's our mandate?
Well, I don't know if I know what you mean by mandate, but this is a statutory rape situation, isn't it, Taylor? It has to be reported to the police.
Yeah. Is it more appropriate to call in the child crime first? That's why it is a crime against the child. In the state of Oklahoma, a 27-year-old is not legally able to have intercourse with a 15-year-old. That is rape. And so, and that's the issue that the counselor really was stuck on, is that she said, and her point was, well, this is their culture. I mean, if you look at the culture in Mexico, the age of consent is 12. And so why am I going to, call this in when this is, this is perfectly acceptable? In this case, I'll give you a little more information that wasn't made available in the study. The mom was all for not all for the pregnancy, but she was not wanting to call. She was not wanting to, she was wanting to support her daughter and not be involved in a legal situation here. So, because that's eventually what was attempted to do, is attempted to inform the parent and then make a decision from there and then go from there. But so there, like you mentioned, the steps, which steps might come first. And I think I'm glad that you brought that up, because when you consider all these things, even though we may have our hands tied on what we can do, we can still try to mitigate damage of what happens, even, when we carry these things out. What else?
Culture does not trump the law.
What's that? Sorry, Shelley?
Culture does not trump the law.
Yeah. Culture does not supersede the law. Yeah, that's a good point to make.
I think that something I think about when I am thinking about this type of situation is how these people will feel about the decisions that are made for them regarding ethics and laws, and how that relates to how they feel about counseling. Thinking, what, if we never would have gone to counseling, we could have handled this situation as a family, and these types of law enforcement. And I'm not saying, obviously we have to make the right decision. I'm just saying, just thinking about how that affects the family in the long run and how they're going to feel about counseling.
You're absolutely right. There are a lot of cultures that have a real aversion to counseling, have a strong preference to solve problems within their own family. Not only is there maybe stigma about being labeled, but just like you mentioned, they're having people intrude upon their lives and make decisions for them. So yeah, this is one where you go home and you're like, this sucks. Why did I sign up to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the counselor who was trying to make a decision that was different than where you guys are going on this. And I was going to have folks do this kind of as a group, but we were running short on time to see kind of where, and also use different models. Is there anything else people want to add before because I do want to give you all a model to use outside of this. Okay, let me show you where I was going to try to go, and just ran out of my when I got the curveball today with the technology, that really threw me a loop. So I didn't. You will get some resources here, and let me share those. Here it is. So this is really the most heavily prescribed model. It's actually endorsed by the ACA. And so you'd be definitely safe in using this one. So this actually comes from Forrester Miller. That's a hyphenated last name, Davis. And I believe they updated this in 2016. And I'll just share this poster with y'all via email when we conclude, and also a couple other things that we talked about. So you have an ethical dilemma. Number one, identify the problem. The problem here was we had a 15-year-old that disclosed rape. Outline the facts, separating innuendos, assumptions, hypotheses, or suspicions. You only want the facts, right? Don't. I had one therapist one time who was talking to a youth in the shelter, and she had been the victim of a crime, and it was basically a fondling type of situation where she was touched inappropriately. And she started talking about it, and she said, well, something happened with my uncle. And the client was a little, not necessarily learning disabled, intellectually disabled, but a little bit, maybe not quite average intellectual functioning. So she didn't quite have the words. She said, oh, my uncle, something happened. So our counselor goes, oh, girl, did he rape you? And so from that point on, the client referred to the incident as rape, which completely confounded the investigation, which confounded, you know, the story that she'd already given to the forensic interviewer, and really created a problem where there didn't need to be one. So outline the facts. Try not to insert your own values, your own beliefs, your own language when you can. Ask yourself, is it an ethical, legal, professional, or clinical problem? Because there's a difference between those four. Is it a combination? If you have legal advice, if you have an attorney, use an attorney if you can, if that's available to you, if it's that big. I did. When in my situation, I reached out and actually had representation in the situation I talked about earlier. Consider any state or professional codes that apply, and consult the ACA code. And then determine the nature of the dilemma, like we did. What's in conflict here? Is it autonomy, non-maleficence, beneficence, justice, fidelity? These are our foundational principles. They actually want you to review the literature. So there may be some literature about a situation that if you're really, you have time outside the session to go consult, there might be some studies out there on something that you're confronting. Definitely go talk to your colleagues and also your local, the state rules too. And find a way that you can scroll up on your screen. There you go. Like we did, kind of brainstorm potential courses of outcome, post-it notes. Consider the potential consequences. We didn't go into detail, we didn't go into depth on those, but we could consider the possible consequences of each course of action for all parties involved. So again, that's where, even if you're mandated to report, you can start to separate out what the implications are. What the implications. Okay, I'll see you, buddy. Okay, so and then you evaluate the selected course of action. Consider justice, publicity. Is this going to blow you up in media? Consider universality. Would you recommend this same course to another person? And then do it. And then go and do it. The other models that are out there are kind of interesting. I'll show you one that I was going to, which had to do with constructivism. And if I can find it, it's just not out there, is it? Okay, well, I will share it with you. I will share some other models with you. Here's one. Let's try this Freeman Williams. At least it involves culture a little bit. So this gives you a way to kind of compare, because there are over 50 of these things. So I just choose one. If you're going to document, don't document all 50 of them. Just choose one that's going to work. So this might work in our case here. So let's take a look at this one. This one really is regarding multicultural ethical decision-making models. And so it's trying to look at and see, because we are dealing with a different culture here, right? Dealing with a culture that's outside of the Euro-centric, culture of the United States. So ethical decision-making step, you would identify and define an ethical dilemma. What is right versus right issue? What are the conflicting incompatible courses of action? So for instance, even though it may have been acceptable in the culture for a 27-year-old and a 15-year-old to consummate a relationship, we're in a situation where that's not legal here. What's the crux of the dilemma? What are the stakes? This is an interesting one. Explore the context of power. Like we kind of alluded to, this, and Corey kind of brought this up, and some others. This is a system that's now going to basically take away autonomy of a lot of people here. Explore the context of power. And is that going to be different? And so the way I would ask this question, is that going to be any different than someone who's a member of this culture? Or that's not under the same power dynamics. assess acculturation and racial identity development. You know, again, if it's culturally normative for a 27-year-old and a 15-year-old to have a relationship, then what do we need to think about there? Seek consultation, generate alternative solutions. So I don't know, we could spend some more time working out our case study, our vignette here, but I don't know too many alternatives in this case. And it's probably, I have more ownership in this case because I ultimately told her we got a report, and it was, you become polarized when you take a stance on something. You legitimately do. I mean, you start to own that more. Select a course of action, and then evaluate if that decision lines up with the ethical code. If I would have broken this out into groups, what do y'all think? Would there have been differences in this case, using the 7-step model versus the multicultural model there?
I think we all might have ended up at the same place, but we might have gotten there a little bit different path.
Yeah, I don't know. How might, yeah, we might have gone down a different path. So I'm trying to brainstorm outside how that might look. I wonder if the multicultural group would have said, I don't know what the multicultural group would have said. It's hard to say. What if the 27-year-old is an oil field buddy of the dad? Then there's another wrinkle, another odd, very disturbing turn to this for, to consider.
My thinking too is, what if the parents agreed or accepted the relationship or did not have an issue with it?
Yeah, and I think that's where this was actually going in real life. So I think genuinely in the real outcome of this was you probably had some people that were extremely resentful of the counseling agency, of what was provided, and because of the cultural differences. And if I'm remembering the case correctly, it's been a while. It's been about 8 or 9 years. If I'm remembering the case correctly, I mean, the guy ended up going to jail. That guy was incarcerated because they had DNA evidence. I mean, you don't get to prosecute, knowing how the child crimes work around here, and probably most other places as well. You don't get to prosecute and end up with convictions very often. But DNA makes that very clear. So I don't know. You think of it outside that box and outside of any hardcore structured ethical box. She's going to be 16 when she gives birth, and I'm not saying this is right. I mean, I think that a 15-year-old is my own personal values. Throwing my own personal values out. I don't think a 15-year-old is anywhere near responsible enough to make a decision or to be able to care for a child. But then again, what's the damage? Did we create one or more aces? I don't know. It's not a good thing. Go ahead.
Well, I kind of remember from ethics is that there's some things that we, as the counselors, probably it's beyond our pay rank to make that decision. Culturally, maybe that is different, or if the parents give consent, but that may be a legal question, but that's not for me to decide. That's for whoever. That's for the police or for DHS, Child Services, or whatever to decide. But I feel like I would have to report and let them make that decision, and that decision is not for me to make.
And that's a good perspective to have, Keith, to keep that license on the wall for sure. Because I've known counselors that get maybe too involved and start to investigate themselves and start to get too much information, and we're not investigators. We're counselors.
Right.
And when we yeah, go ahead.
And I would also hope that maybe that somewhere along the line the client would have disclosed that she was dating at 27 or had a relationship, and maybe I mean, looking back on it, it's easy to look back on it, but done something to prevent that before all this happened.
Yeah. It's the biggest thing. What comes down to what gets people into trouble is when things really deeply conflict with us and our own. And I know this counselor who was trying to make the decision not to disclose, and my point was kind of like, this is going to come out, and at some point, what liability, and we don't know whether the father is going to be. What if the father completely throws a fit and sues us because we didn't disclose? And I mean, there's all kinds of things that, and so then there's all these other things that come into play when you're making these decisions. But it really hurts when we feel real strongly, because honestly, everybody that's in this room, I know, some of you very, very well, everybody that's in this room got into this profession to help somebody. We got into the profession to help and to make people's lives better. And when we're forced to make something, or we feel like we have the power to go one way or another, and we're causing harm, that's when it really sticks with us. And that's also when some people make poor choices. So what I'm proposing today, what I'm giving you is a model to go by. And that's real. If you come up with a situation like this where there doesn't feel like there's a good outcome, there could be a legal situation, I would encourage all of you to use the model or another one that I'm going to give you. When you document, I used the Forrester Miller Davis 2016 model. This is advocated by the ACA. And so you will cover, if you're ever called and somebody said, how did you make this decision? Well, this won't end up in court because I've used this model, and here's my documentation to prove it. So save it, double save it, back it up. If you're ever, 5 years down the road called, oh yeah, I remember, I saved that under this file. Here's my note on that. I had the privilege of working with somebody who did internal investigations for the Enid Police Department. And that individual taught me very well to anytime you run across a situation where it could come up again later, if there's any sort of ethical ambiguity, make yourself a note right after it happens. Kind of like our progress notes, only it's separate. Make yourself a note of what happened, what you did, because that will cover your butt later on. And so that's really my intention here for all of you is number one, to help clients, but number two, help you continue to be professionals, help you to continue to be able to help people. Because if you get in trouble, we can't, and that hurts a lot of people. So anyway, questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas, requests for refunds, because we got started a little bit late. Okay, how this will look is I've got an afternoon session. I plan to get these I plan to get these certificates produced this weekend and out to you by Monday. Okay, so look in if I don't have a good email for you, hopefully you all got the email link. You did for this. So I will send the certificates back with each one of your names with the ethics. Made sure it's documented well, and make sure you get that PDF file with my signature and everything's official. So the state allowed some grace to be able to deliver these. These are normally have to be done face to face. I would much rather have done this face to face, but we're making do with what we can. So anyway, thank you all. I'll stick around for a couple minutes if y'all have questions. It was really nice to see everybody again. Glad everybody's still alive and kicking and doing well out there. But anyway, if you don't hear from me by Monday, start reaching out and just I'll get them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same link for the afternoon session?
Same link for afternoon. If you want supervision, just come back at 1. Same place.